You know what would be great? If Texas A&M starting quarterback could maybe play the whole season.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So, today we're going to talk about the importance of having your starting quarterback stay on the field and why that matters so much. And it's so funny, not funny, painful, but almost funny at this point, how crazy it is that Texas A&M can't keep a starting quarterback on the field. It really almost is like, just unlucky at this point and how crazy it's been. But let's be honest. Texas A&M keeping QB1 on the field. Now, this conversation, I know that I rustle some feathers when I talk about starting quarterback a little bit, but, that's not really what this conversation is about. This conversation is about whoever is QB1 needs to stay on the field. Last season, Weigman's in a rhythm. He goes down with an injury. And here, this is why it matters so much. Obviously, last season, let's think about this. Texas A&M played Connor Weigman, Max Johnson, Jaylen Henderson, and Marcel Reed. And each one of those guys had to step in because of an injury. Do you know how hard it is for an offense to get a rhythm, to really settle in and get a rhythm when the quarterback is changing every 3-4 weeks? It is not easy to do. This stuff is important. It is important for teams. So, the goal early in the season is to figure each other out, is to figure your receivers out. And yes, the reps in practice, does that stuff help? Of course it does. Yes, it helps. But nothing will ever compare to a game rep. Obviously, opening up the season with Notre Dame changes this a little bit because you're not opening your season, with a bad kind of team to where you can kind of figure yourself out as you go. It's a little more trial by fire against a team like Notre Dame, although it is a home game. But my point here is, ladies and gentlemen, keeping a quarterback on the field, one quarterback, not saying, we're going to talk in a minute about the injury concerns with these quarterbacks and will that help potentially another candidate. We're going to have that conversation in a minute. So we'll get a little bit into that conversation. But whoever it is, like I said, whoever it is, I just want one guy on the field. I would love – that'd be a good question. I'm going to try and start this in this summer, we're going to get some players on the show and do some stuff there. And I would love to ask the players their opinion on how much having to switch quarterbacks like they did throughout the year really affected this team. Because at the end of the day, it can't be helpful. It can't be a good thing having the most important player on the field switching in and out every 3 or 4 games. You had Wiggs play 3.5, then you had Max Johnson play, for whatever it was, 3 or 4 or 5, and then you have Jaylen Henderson come in and play 2 or 3, and then Henderson plays the first game of the bowl game, goes down with that injury, and Marcel Reed is launched into action. I just think that how good can a Texas A&M team be if they have a quarterback that's constant? You got to remember, it's been years now. It feels like since a starter has played game 1 and played game 12. It's been a long time. And like last season, we talk about, and this is not, I'm not going to sit here and defend Coach Fisher. It's not what I'm doing. But I mean, last year is a great example. We were in a lot of football games, a lot of every football game. And, your quarterback was switching a ton. I mean, Max played a bulk of the more difficult games. It was funny, Connor opened the season with the kind of the easier non-conference games, the Miami game, and then goes down to the Auburn game. Then you have Max play the tougher games, and Jaylen kind of come back in for the easier SEC games. But like any of those three quarterbacks, and it's funny how we've learned that. I still think that Connor Weigman is a step above. Was a step above Max Johnson, Jaylen Henderson. That's why he won the job. But I think any quarterback, any of those three quarterbacks, heck, from what we saw from Marcel Reed, maybe even you could say the same about Marcel Reed. If they could have stayed on the field, it maybe could have led to another win last season for the Aggies. I mean, really, I just having, especially for the receivers, having a rhythm with your quarterback is important. I mean, that's why, you ever watch an NFL game and the backup quarterback has to play, and they put in and a backup receiver has to play because of injury, and you go, man, why does this quarterback keep feeding that guy? Well, because that's who he's throwing to in practice all game, practice all the time. So I think that you have a rapport with the guys you're throwing to, and if you have a new quarterback coming in every 3 weeks, your starting receivers, even if they get those reps during the week, the reps during the week will never replicate the reps that you are getting in a game. So that's what I'm saying. Like, quarterback goes down. It's like, okay, here we go. Let's say next season, Connor Weigman starts and he gets hurt in week 7 and Jaylen Henderson or Marcel Reed's launched in action, and you got to okay, all right, we got to figure this out. How can we change? What are we going to have to change the offense? Receivers, let's start getting footballs thrown to you by these guys, running routes. You have to do that, and it's hard to, build that in a week, really incorporate all that. So my point is, I don't want this to be something that we have to worry about. Now, watching back, on the play that Weigman got hurt, I mean, here's the deal. Nobody blocked him. The player that hit him, nobody blocked him. He ran right at Connor. Nothing he could do about it. And my point here is offensive line play is going to be a part of this. I mean, like I said, the Jaylen Henderson play was a little different. He kind of had escaped, he had escaped and was getting ready to run, but then he dumped the football off, got his legs taken out from under him, landed on his arm, and broke a bone and had to get surgery there. But that is, to me, the offensive line play is going to be a big part of this. We saw Max Johnson taking bullets. I mean, he was just getting peppered all season long when he was starting. I mean, his ribs, I don't know how he still has ribs. I don't know how they didn't all break and leave his body somehow. It's like he was getting hammered every play. The offensive line has to keep these quarterbacks healthy. I mean, let's call, the two of the 3 injuries were based on offensive line letting people get to the quarterback. So it's not on the quarterback. Like to me, the injuries to the quarterbacks aren't like, oh man, these nagging hamstring injuries. We got to get better in the strength and conditioning room, which will happen thanks to Coach Moffitt. But that's not it. They are getting hit because of the offensive lines letting some blockers through, letting some pass rushers through, whatever it is. That is what's leading to these quarterbacks getting injured. The offensive line has to keep the quarterbacks right up, standing up, not getting hurt, not getting hit. So keeping QB1 healthy is important. Will help a rhythm come between the offense. But at the end of the day, unless it's a hamstring injury or something like that, most of these injuries are happening because of pass rushers hitting the quarterback. So a lot of this comes down more so. This isn't as much on the quarterbacks as it is on the offensive line to keep them healthy and not let pass rushers get after them. So that is incredibly important. But ladies and gentlemen, it would be so great to see Texas A&M's offense under Coach Klein get in a rhythm next year with whoever ends up winning this starting job staying healthy all 12 games of the season, and then whatever occurs in the postseason. It would be so exciting. So, am I concerned about the injuries to Connor Weigman and Jaylen Henderson when it comes to next season being ready to go, ready to compete for the starting job? We'll have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or die every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So, of course, kind of continuing on this quarterback conversation a little bit, am I concerned about the injuries to Connor Weigman and Jaylen Henderson? It's interesting. I want to pull up this report on from Texas Ags on Connor Weigman and what he said, because I should have written that down. I forgot the wording of how he explained it. But so this is what Connor Weigman said on Texas Ags for those who missed it. He says, rehab has been good so far. The doctor called a couple of days ago. He looked at my CT scans and said the bones were all healed. It was good to get cleared from him. We just need to start working with the training staff now, and it's about getting back to feeling like myself again. Connor indicated he's excited to get back with his teammates and work out with them. It's exciting to be back with the team and do the same workouts with the guys. Being on the side by myself was pretty tough because I couldn't be with my teammates and in the fire with them. I'm excited about being back with the team and getting the ball rolling again. So sounds like this dude just wants to play a little football, which I get it. Being hurt is no fun. It's no fun. I never really had an injury in my baseball career. I broke up my foot when I was 11, but you know what I mean? That's not really in the heat of my actual baseball career. But being injured is not fun. Not being out there with your teammates is not fun. And so I know Connor was going through that. But the left lower leg injury, and it was funny. I had to look back. You forget which leg it is. You know what I mean? Which leg it's Connor's oh, well, Connor sure we'll see him next season. Oh yeah, what leg is it? Because I was is it his back leg that he drives off of? Is it his plant foot? And then I couldn't find it anywhere, so I had to watch the video again. And they keep saying lower left leg injury, lower left leg injury. So I find that funny. That's oh yeah, what leg was it? You literally forget about these things because it's been so long. But so the lower left leg injury for Connor Weigman that required surgery. And then Jaylen Henderson, of course, broke that bone in his non-throwing arm. So, but still going to be some recovery there. So, two things to me. I think that knowing that the plant leg, to me, because this is, throwing a baseball, as y'all know that listen, I pitched in college. So, throwing a baseball and throwing a football has its differences and has its similarities. But for me, I would it's kind of funny. I think there's positives and negatives to which leg you hurt. You got your leg you drive off of. I was a left-handed pitcher, so I drove off my left foot and planted with my right foot. Connor Weigman drives off his right foot and lands with his left foot. So it's his landing leg that's banged up, and there's no good leg to hurt, because you got to be able to brace. All the power from the throw goes for a right-handed quarterback from the right foot, or from the right lower leg, from the right leg to the left leg. And the left leg is, your plant leg, you brace and you stop all that energy as you deliver the ball. So, there's no good leg to injure if you are throwing a round object. Well, I guess in football is different. You know what I mean? If you were throwing an object in a sport, you don't want to ever hurt a leg, because both legs are important in the process of throwing a football, throwing a baseball, all of those things. And then, of course, on top of just the throwing motion, the delivery of throwing the football for Conor Weigman, you have to think about his ability to use his legs. That's one of the things that I love about Conor Weigman is his, now his athleticism is a different type than Marcel Reed and Jaylen Henderson's. His athleticism is more of a, escape the pocket, a rollout, nothing's there, I'm going to take off for 11 yards, that kind of athleticism. He's not going to have as many designed run plays as you would see for Henderson or Marcel Reed, as they're, guys who use their legs better. But Conor Weigman's athletic and he's quick. So, how long does it take him to get back to being himself? And then a lot of quarterbacks, when you get hurt that way, when you get hurt getting hit, does it affect you at all and your willingness to hang around in the pocket? I don't think you're going to see that affect Conor Weigman, but it's something to pay attention to. If I had to rank how concerned I am for Henderson and Weigman's injury, I'm of course much more concerned for Weigman's injury. I mean, a non-throwing arm injury for a quarterback is just not. You catch the snap, you deliver the football, and it's not even really like baseball where you pull down with that arm with that non-dominant arm. You just don't use that non-throwing arm a ton. Unless Henderson's rolling out and needs to stiff arm somebody and he's got the ball in his left arm. His left arm being his, so he's stiff arm with his right arm, which his arm was injured because he's a left-handed quarterback and he hurt his non-throwing arm. So, I'm not as concerned about that injury because the only thing that could happen is if you re-break it. There's really no concern there, and it's not going to affect his throwing motion at all. So I'm more concerned about Weigman's injury. It does, lower leg injuries are a problem. Does it slow him down a little bit? Is he a little tentative in the pocket? There's some things that are going to have to work themselves out. I trust Conor's going to be okay. He's going to be great. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I do still think he will be QB1. But, I'm glad that he's going to have all these different opportunities, the spring, the summer. He's going to have these different opportunities to get back to being himself. And it sounds like he's already close to being himself. So, he's still got to get fully good to go health-wise. But I think he'll be okay for game one. I think he'll be okay for everything. I think he'll be good to go for summer workouts and spring practice and all this. I think he'll be good to go, which is good because that'll get him back into football rhythm before the team really starts to get going practice-wise for the start of the 2024 football season. So I want y'all to let me know that. How concerned are we? Are we the Locked On Aggies family? How concerned are we with the injury to these two quarterbacks? Are we concerned at all for the start of next season? Let me know that in the comments. And then the last question that goes with this conversation is, how much can this help Marcel Reed in this race? Does this get Marcel Reed a few extra reps to start the offseason? I think that these two guys are getting healthy enough in Henderson and Weigman that it's not going to end up playing a huge role for Marcel Reed. I don't think you're going to see him really benefit much from those injuries when it comes to his chances of starting. But if it would be because it takes Conor longer to get back to being himself. That would be what would give him a shot, I think, to gain some. Not that he's happy these guys are hurt. That's not what I'm saying. But for him, his chance of being the starter, I think Weigman's injury would be the only one that would really give him a leg up, just because Connor's coming back off a lower body injury, and that's much more difficult to do. So I don't think it helps Marcel Reed a ton, but I mean, it is definitely good not to be the quarterback that doesn't have any kind of injury concern. So we'll see if that does give him any kind of leg up in the competition. But I don't think you're going to see Connor Weigman or Jaylen Henderson, hindered by these injuries at all when we get closer to really getting deep into this quarterback competition. So, but let me know thoughts on all those. Everydayers, let me know that in the comments. How nice would it be to have a quarterback healthy game 1 through game 12 through the bowl game, college football playoff, whatever it is? And then how concerned are we about the injuries to these two quarterbacks? And does it help Marcel Reed? Let me know y'all's thoughts on those things in the comments. And lastly, leave me a question. I want to do a mailbag episode tomorrow and have a couple of maybe a segment 3, maybe segment 2 as well on some mailbag questions. So if y'all leave some questions in the comments, I will answer them on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Aggies. So leave those things in the comments. We're going to have a quick conversation about the transfer portal and how many of these players that are headed to Texas A&M via the portal will start this season. We'll have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. So, this to me is an interesting conversation. How many of these guys that are committed could potentially walk into a starting role? And first of all, I think it's too hard right now to really figure out what's going to happen in the secondary, because you brought in so many guys. It's not like a room where, you needed some depth and you brought in 2 guys. It's like, okay, maybe one of these 2 can start. I mean, it's like, can one of these 37 guys that we brought in from the portal in the secondary start? And so I think that the players that I really like to have a shot to start, I really like Donovan Saunders, the corner from Cal Poly. I really like Will the Blanket Lee, and I really like Jaden Hill and Des Ricks. I think of those 4 guys, and the reason I like Jaden Hill, like I said, how was he at Florida? He was fine. He wasn't, exceptional. He wasn't bad. He was middle of the road. And the reason that he's in this race for me, if I had to rank those 4 names, he'd be number 4, but he has played SEC football, and I do think that's valuable. So I think now Ricks has played, Des Ricks has played a little bit, but not, I mean, we're talking a couple of snaps, So Des Ricks is just so talented, and the upside is so high that I think you're going to see him fight for a starting spot. I think you're going to see Jaden Hill fight for a starting spot, Donovan Saunders, and then, of course, Will the Blanket, the best nickname in the history of college football. I think you're going to see him start for a starting role as well. So you will see a couple of those guys start. And then I think in the safety room, I really like Ratcliffe from San Diego State. I think he's a great player, and I would not be surprised to see him out there. So Ratcliffe is the name to remember there. But I think that in the secondary, those are the guys to watch out for. I like those names. Now, not to say I don't like Derecki Wright, and I don't like BJ Mays, and I don't like Trey Jones, because I think those guys can compete for a role here. I just think that those names I listed are the ones that I'm looking forward to really compete for playing time. Nick Scorton, obviously, we're not even having a conversation about that. We know what he's gonna do. We know he's gonna start. So Nick Scorton, he's gonna be out there. I have 3 more names that I think could potentially work their way into a starting role. 3 names. And this one is gonna shock some folks, and that'd be Jabri Barber. I still feel confident with who we got in the wide receiver room in Noah Thomas, Moose, and Jade Walker. I've been watching more tape on these guys to really get to know them and know their game. And we'll really deep dive into these players here in a few weeks. But Jabri Barber, there's something about him. The more I watch this film, I think he can be a really good football player in the SEC. I really, really do. I like what I'm seeing from him. I think he's a guy who has a shot here, folks, to compete for some playing time. On the offensive line, the next guy I got here is Derek Graham, just because he's the tackle of the group. Being the tackle of the group, I think he's going to compete for a role. So the Troy transfer, just talked about back-to-back Troy transfers in Barber and Derek Graham. But those are the guys that I'm looking at I think you could see Graham compete for a tackle position. I think you could see Jabri Barber compete for a starting. I really do think you could see him compete to be a starting receiver. And that's gonna surprise some folks, but just watching the film on this kid, I think he's going to be really good. And then the last guy I got here is Alex Howard, the linebacker from Youngstown State. This is another one of those. It's kind of similar to my thoughts on Jabri Barber. It just, the tape on Alex Howard, I think this guy can come in and compete in the SEC right now. Like, I think that Scooby Williams is an incredible addition to that room as well. But I just have this suspicion that Alex Howard is going to end up being a better transfer portal addition than Scooby Williams. And I do think you could compete to see him out there with York. So Alex Howard is a name to remember, ladies and gentlemen. Same with Jabri Barber. Those are the two guys that I think that some might not, look at as potential starters. I think those two guys could really sneak up on you. And when we get closer and closer to the kickoff of the 2024 college football season, you could really have these guys have a shot here to start for the Aggies. And I do think that if they don't start, they're going to have a role. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Ladies and gentlemen, it's almost Friday. Keep pushing through. We'll have a fun Friday show for you. Hope everybody has an outstanding rest of their day today. Leave all those things I asked for in the comments. How nice is it going to be to have a QB1 out there all year? Are we concerned? And then are you concerned about the injuries to Weigman, Henderson? And then how does Marcel Reed not being banged up help his shot at winning this race? Let me know those things in the comments. Everybody and then leave some questions. Like I said, leave some questions for a little mailbag tomorrow. Hope everybody has a great rest of their day today, and we will see you tomorrow.